Daniel never planned on measuring life by the number of nights slept in his car, but that's how things had turned out. Every morning started with the same ritual, wiping condensation off the windows, checking that the engine would still turn over, and pretending the rumble of passing trucks was applause instead of reminder. His son, Sam, barely 8, slept curled under a blanket in the back seat, clutching an old toy train. The irony wasn't lost on Daniel. They were homeless, surrounded by movement, yet going nowhere. Still, he told himself they were in motion, just a different kind. The city always felt crueler at dawn. Streetlights blinked off, and the world revealed its sharp edges again. Daniel stepped out, stretched stiff arms, and looked toward the gas station across the road, his unofficial kitchen, restroom, and information hub. While Sam still slept, he filled a paper cup with cheap coffee, poured half into a lid, and set it aside to cool. That's when he saw it, a sun-faded flyer pinned to the corkboard by the door. County surplus auction decommissioned train cars, starting bid, $100. He stared at the words, barely breathing. $100. Shelter. He studied the picture on the flyer, an old passenger car, rusted but dignified, sunlight kissing its steel like memory. The idea struck him not as absurd but as impossible not to try. A train car wasn't a home, but it could become one. Sam always loved trains. Maybe, Daniel thought, a miracle didn't have to be new. It could be something forgotten, waiting to be found. He folded the flyer and tucked it into his jacket like a secret, knowing he couldn't explain why it mattered. Some chances whisper. You only hear them when you've lost everything else. When Daniel told Sam that night, the boy's eyes widened, a spark lighting behind exhaustion. A train? He whispered, as if afraid the idea might vanish if spoken too loudly. To live in? Daniel smiled faintly. To fix up, he said, to make hours. They spent the next morning scrounging gas money, trading spare tools for a few extra bills. The drive to the old rail yard took 2 hours, long enough for Hope to feel dangerous again. As they neared the lot, weeds grew taller, rails turned to rust, and silence replaced traffic. The place looked like time had stopped. Rows of forgotten train cars stretched into the distance, each one scarred by rain and neglect. Some leaned like old men too tired to stand straight. Others still looked proud in their decay. Sam pressed his face to the window. It's like a graveyard, he murmured. Maybe, Daniel said. But even graveyards are full of stories. They parked near the entrance, stepping out into air that smelled of iron and wet grass. A crowd gathered, farmers, junk dealers, dreamers. Daniel felt out of place among them. But then again, he'd felt out of place everywhere lately. This time, maybe it mattered. The auctioneer's voice cracked through the cold like thunder wrapped in nicotine. Cars went fast, dining cars, freight boxes, rusted shells stripped to metal bones. Daniel's hand twitched with every hammer fall, but his wallet reminded him to wait. When Lot 29 car #7413 rolled up, he saw her. The paint was faded red, the windows fogged with dust, but something about the shape, sturdy, defiant, drew him in. The starting bid came. $100, called the auctioneer. Silence. Daniel lifted his hand before fear could stop him. 100. No one countered. The gavel hit. Sold. Sam cheered, jumping into his arms. For the first time in months, Daniel laughed, a sound that cracked his face open like sunlight after endless rain. A few bystanders chuckled, shaking their heads. Good luck fixing that heap, someone muttered. Daniel didn't reply. The rail yard manager handed him a key and a paper stamped Owner, Daniel Reyes. 2 words he hadn't seen together in years. Careful inside, the man warned. She's old. Floors give. Some say this one was special, belonged to a collector who never finished restoring her. Folks called her the Wanderer. Fitting name, ain't it? They approached 7,413 as if entering a church. The metal door groaned when Daniel pulled it open, and a rush of cool, dusty air spilled out. The interior glowed faintly with the light that filtered through cracked glass. It's big, Sam whispered, and strong. Daniel smiled. She's got bones. They stepped inside, boots crunching over fragments of old glass and forgotten decades. Rusted fixtures hung from the ceiling like relics of a lost faith. Yet, in that ruin, Daniel felt something stirring a hum beneath the silence, as if the car recognized them. Welcome home, he whispered, half afraid. They spent the first hours clearing debris. Every scrape of the broom revealed wood and metal older than Daniel's father's stories. Sam turned cleanup into adventure, pretending he was uncovering treasure. Look, Dad, a spoon. That's history, Daniel grinned, despite himself. History or not, it felt good to work with purpose again. By sundown, the car looked less like a corpse and more like a possibility. They lit a small lantern and sat on the floor eating canned soup. Wind moaned through the seams, but the place held. It's talking, Sam said. What's it saying? That it's still alive, Daniel answered. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He lay awake listening to the rhythm of rain on the roof, the deep groan of metal cooling. The sound reminded him of something, maybe a lullaby from childhood, or maybe just the heartbeat of hope returning. He thought about the name the manager had mentioned, the Wanderer. It fit. A home for the lost, maybe even for him. Sam stirred beside him, whispering in dreams, smiling faintly. Daniel touched his son's shoulder, whispering back, We'll make it work. Outside, lightning flashed over the horizon, illuminating the car like a photograph that refused to fade. Morning came bright and cold. Birds perched on the wires, their songs cutting through the stillness. Daniel brewed coffee on a camp stove, the smell filling the car with something that almost felt like comfort. Sam sat cross-legged, studying the walls. Can we paint it? He asked. Someday, Daniel said. Once we fix the leaks. They worked side by side, hammering loose nails, patching holes with scavenged wood. Each strike echoed like punctuation, a rhythm of rebuilding. For the first time in a long time, Daniel didn't feel broken. He felt rebuilding himself with every nail he drove in. By afternoon, they discovered a hidden compartment under one of the benches, a small hatch sealed with rust. Daniel pried it open using a screwdriver. Inside lay a tin box covered in dust. Sam's eyes widened. Treasure! He exclaimed. Daniel chuckled. Maybe. He lifted it out carefully and blew away the years. The latch protested but gave way. Inside were black and white photographs, letters tied with string, and a pocket watch that still gleamed faintly beneath the grime. Whoa, Sam breathed. Daniel turned one photo over. On the back, a line written in ink, for those who carry the journey forward. The letters were addressed to Pacific and Northern Restoration Society. Each bore a date from decades ago. Daniel unfolded one, his hands trembling slightly. If you've found this car, she's yours now. We tried to bring her back to life, but time ran faster than money. She holds stories, listen close. Every bolt remembers. He read it twice, the words pressing on his chest like a heartbeat. Sam asked, "You think it's true?" Daniel smiled faintly. "I think everything old remembers something." The boy nodded seriously. "Then we have to listen." Daniel looked around. "That's exactly what we'll do." That night, they set up blankets and built a small fire in a metal bucket near the open door. The flames flickered against the steel walls, throwing shadows that looked like passengers moving through time. Sam leaned into his father's side. "Feels safe here," he murmured. Daniel nodded. "Safer than anywhere else." They fell asleep to the crackle of fire and the faint whistle of distant trains, the kind that still ran far away, across states they'd never see. The wanderers stood silent but steady, as if promising to hold their dreams a little longer until the world caught up. Days passed like slow music, mornings filled with work, evenings with stories. Daniel found rhythm again, not the kind you dance to, but the kind you survive by. Each repaired board, each cleared corner, gave back a little dignity. Sam decorated the space with drawings taped to the walls, crooked trains, stick figures, and one picture labeled home. Daniel stared at that one for a long time before pinning it beside the window. Outside, frost bit the ground, but inside, warmth flickered between them. The train had stopped moving years ago, yet somehow it carried them forward. One cold afternoon, Daniel found a small brass key wedged in a floor crack near the conductor's booth. He held it up to the light. It looked familiar, almost like the one on the pocket watch. "Where'd this come from?" he murmured. Sam shrugged. "Maybe it's for another secret door." They searched every inch, knocking on panels, listening for hollow sounds. At last, near the end of the car, Daniel found one, a square patch of metal, smoother than the rest, with a faint seam running across. The key fit perfectly. The lock clicked open, like a whisper from history. Behind the hidden panel was a velvet-lined compartment, dust thick as a century. Inside sat a leather-bound logbook, the words, "Conductor's Journal Line 7413, embossed faintly on the cover. Daniel lifted it carefully, brushing away grime. The pages smelled of smoke and oil. The first entries described routes, passengers, weather reports, the daily hum of life long gone. Then the tone changed. January 12. Passenger requested an unscheduled stop at mile marker 47. Left behind a trunk. Never returned. Daniel frowned. Sam leaned close. "You think it's still here?" "Maybe," Daniel said quietly. "Maybe it's been waiting." They searched for hours, tracing walls and floors like detectives on sacred ground. Sam tapped one corner. "Hollow," he said. Daniel knelt, pried gently with the crowbar. The panel shifted, dust rising like ghosts. Behind it was a trunk, wrapped in canvas, tied with rope so old it fell apart at a touch. The air that escaped smelled ancient, heavy with secrets. "Careful," Daniel whispered. Together they dragged it into the open. The locks were rusted but yielded with time. Inside lay ledgers, ticket stubs, and a smaller wooden box, edges gilded with brass. Daniel lifted it like it contained light. The wooden box held bundles of old cash, ration coupons, and an envelope labeled "Final Payout P and N Line." But underneath that stack, something else. A smaller notebook, black leather, initials pressed into the cover. D.R. Sam read aloud. Daniel froze. "Dad?" the boy asked. Daniel swallowed hard. "That's my name." The words tasted strange, like déjà vu turned solid. He opened the notebook with shaking hands. The first line read, "If you're reading this, Danny, it means you finally found her." His breath caught. The handwriting familiar, looping, steady. His grandfather's, the man he barely remembered but never forgot. The next pages told stories of a younger world, of trains roaring through mountains, of passengers saved from storms, of lessons learned along endless miles. Then the tone shifted. "I kept this car when the company closed. Couldn't scrap her. She's family. Someday, someone will need her again. Maybe someone with my name." Daniel closed the notebook, stunned, silent. Sam whispered, "Grandpa built this." Daniel nodded slowly. He saved it. And somehow, it found us. They sat there, surrounded by history that had come full circle. For the first time in forever, Daniel didn't feel lost. He felt chosen. That night, the rain returned, tapping against the roof in gentle rhythm. Daniel read the notebook again by lantern light, while Sam slept beside him. Each line felt like a voice reaching through time, steadying him. His grandfather had written about redemption, about losing everything and finding peace in rebuilding. Daniel traced the words with his finger. Homes aren't walls. They're the people who decide to stay. He whispered the line aloud, tasting its truth. Outside, thunder rolled far away. The train car creaked, but stood firm, as though the past itself was holding the walls together for them. When dawn came, Daniel felt different. Not just grateful, grounded. He stepped outside, boots sinking into wet earth, and looked back at 7,413. The rising sun burned the frost from her steel, turning rust into gold. "You were right, Grandpa," he murmured. "She's still got life." Behind him, Sam called out sleepily, "Dad, the roof's leaking again." Daniel smiled. "Guess we better fix it." They spent the day patching seams, laughing when nails bent, cheering when they didn't. Every repair felt like a conversation with the man who'd once swung these same tools. The Wanderer wasn't just theirs, she was family. By evening, the place looked transformed. The floor gleamed where sunlight touched it. The air smelled of sawdust and coffee. Sam stood on a bench, hands on hips. "We're builders," he declared proudly. Daniel nodded. "And storytellers." They hung a sign above the door, a scrap of wood carved with one word: home. It looked rough, imperfect, human. They sat outside, watching the sky fade pink to blue. "You think Grandpa's watching?" Sam asked. Daniel looked at the horizon. "Yeah," he said softly. "And I think he's proud." The boy smiled. "Then we did good." "We did," Daniel whispered. That night, they lit candles inside the car. The light flickered across the metal, warm and alive. Daniel opened his grandfather's notebook again, reading one final line he hadn't noticed before. "If you find her, you'll know what to do next. The world always needs someone to keep it moving." He closed the book, exhaled, and looked at Sam sleeping peacefully beside him. The train's hum filled the silence, soft as breathing. For the first time in years, Daniel wasn't thinking about leaving, running, or surviving. He was thinking about roots, about staying long enough to build something that lasts. Outside, a distant train horn echoed through the night, long and low, not lonely, but welcoming. The Wanderer stood still, yet everything inside her felt in motion. Daniel leaned back, eyes half closed, listening. Maybe home wasn't a place you arrived at. Maybe it was something that found you when you stopped running. The air smelled of rain and promise. He whispered, "Thank you." not sure if he was speaking to the car, his grandfather, or the quiet mercy of chance itself. The lantern flickered once, then steadied, and for the first time in forever, the silence felt like peace. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the cracked windows, painting the air in streaks of gold. Daniel stirred awake to the sound of Sam humming quietly as he played with a line of bottle caps, pretending they were tiny trains. For a moment, Daniel just watched him, the boy's joy, pure and unguarded. It felt fragile, like something that could vanish if he blinked too hard. He rose, stretched, and felt his joints complain. But he also felt something new, something steady, belonging. For the first time in years, he wasn't waking to uncertainty. He was waking to purpose. They made breakfast over the little camp stove, instant oatmeal and half a banana each. The kind of meal that would have felt like nothing in their old life, but now tasted like victory. Steam fogged the window, blurring the world outside into soft watercolor. Sam said, "I dreamed the train moved last night." Daniel looked up. "Did it go somewhere good?" "Yeah," Sam said, eyes shining. "It took us home." Daniel smiled, though something inside him stirred a quiet ache, the kind that whispers, "There's more to discover." He decided that day to read every page of his grandfather's notebook. When Sam went outside to play, Daniel sat alone with the book and a mug of coffee cooling beside him. The handwriting danced across yellowed paper, firm strokes that grew shakier with time. "To whoever finds this car," one entry read, "know that it carries more than steel. It carries stories, some mine, some borrowed. Take care when you open the compartments. Some hold memories better left sleeping." Daniel frowned. That line, "better left sleeping," pulsed in his mind like a heartbeat. The car had already given them so much, but what if it was still hiding more? He flipped to the back of the notebook and found sketches, detailed drawings of train interiors, maps, repair notes, and something stranger. Coordinates scrawled in the margin beside a line that read, "Hidden cargo, south wall, do not disturb until needed." The ink was faded, but the coordinates matched the rail yard's location. Daniel ran a hand over the wall, the note described, fingertips tracing cold metal seams. One section sounded dull when he knocked. Hollow, his breath caught. He whispered to the air, "You've got one more secret, don't you?" The wanderer stayed silent, but he felt it listen. He didn't tell Sam right away. Some instincts tell a parent when to protect wonder and when to prepare for it. Instead, they spent the afternoon cleaning the roof, patching leaks with tar strips scavenged from a junk pile. The sky turned gray with the promise of rain, but Daniel didn't care. He felt alive again, every hammer strike echoing like punctuation in the story they were rewriting. When dusk settled, he looked at the hidden panel one more time. He decided, tomorrow he'd open it. Tonight, he'd just sit beside his son and let peace be enough. The storm came hard that night, wind howling through the valley, rain pelting against the metal like 1,000 small drums. Inside, the lantern flickered, shadows swaying like restless ghosts. Sam stirred in his sleep, muttering fragments of dreams. Daniel sat awake, hand resting on the notebook. His grandfather's words replayed in his head. "Better left sleeping." He wondered, what kind of man wrote that one who feared what he'd hidden, or one who loved it too much to share? Thunder rolled. The air inside the car tightened. Daniel swore he heard something shift within the walls. A sigh. Morning revealed puddles along the floor and water dripping from the seams, but the car still stood strong. The storm hadn't won. Daniel made repairs while Sam collected rainwater in tin cans, pretending he was saving the ocean. "Dad," he said, "what's behind that wall?" Daniel froze mid-motion. "Why?" "I heard knocking last night," Sam said. "Serious. Like someone inside." Daniel laughed softly. "Probably just wind." But when the boy wandered off, Daniel pressed his ear to the steel. The sound was gone, yet he could have sworn he heard something, not knocking. Exactly, but rhythm, like a heart, beating. After lunch, curiosity won. He cleared the tools, set aside the lantern, and loosened the bolts around the suspicious panel. The metal resisted, as if guarding its own memory. Finally, it gave with a groan, releasing a gust of cold, stale air. Inside was a shallow cavity lined with wood, and within it, wrapped in a rotted tarp, lay another box. Larger than the first, heavier too. Daniel's hands trembled as he pulled it free. The hinges crumbled at his touch. Inside wasn't gold or cash this time, but stacks of journals, rolled blueprints, and photographs marked P and N confidential. He sat for hours reading by lantern light while Sam napped. The journals detailed the train line's final year's government contracts, mysterious shipments, and a note repeating the phrase, humanitarian cargo. Then one entry stopped him cold. 1,949. Shipment rerouted after accident. Orders from above. Item sealed inside car. 7,413 until further notice. Daniel's eyes darted to the very walls around him. His chest tightened. What had they sealed? He flipped through pages of drawings, mechanical sketches, wiring maps, and at last, a blueprint labeled Emergency Life Support Compartment Prototype Model. The location matched exactly where he sat. He ran a hand over the wall beside him. "Grandpa," he whispered, "what did you build?" The car creaked in reply, the sound deep and weary. Daniel hesitated, then gently tapped the inner frame. Hollow again. His pulse quickened. Beneath a layer of insulation, something metallic responded with a dull clang. He pried at the edges until the panel loosened, revealing a cylindrical capsule the size of a small trunk. A faded government insignia still marked its surface. His hands trembled as he wiped the dust. Sam, awakened by the noise, appeared beside him. "Dad, what is that?" "I don't know." Together they lifted it out, muscles straining. The capsule was sealed tight, a latch welded shut decades ago. Daniel found his old chisel, wedged it in, and twisted until the seam gave way. The lid opened with a hiss of stale air. Inside lay rows of old documents, fragile as moth wings, and beneath them a velvet cloth wrapped around something solid. He unfolded it and froze. A silver plaque. Prototype. Emergency Housing Pod, Civilian Model. Designed by David Reyes, 1948. His grandfather's name. The realization hit like light breaking through fog. The man hadn't just preserved the car. He'd built hope. Daniel ran his fingers across the plaque, eyes burning. "He was working on this," he murmured. "He tried to design something to save people after the war. Portable homes." Sam blinked. "Like this train?" Daniel nodded slowly. "Exactly like this." The rest of the box held blueprints for modular shelters, foldable walls, heating vents, sketches, annotated with equations. His grandfather had tried to reinvent survival, one steel frame at a time. "Why'd he hide it?" Sam asked. Daniel sighed. "Maybe nobody believed him, or maybe he ran out of time." The boy traced the designs softly. "Then we'll finish it." The words hit Daniel like a promise. They spent days cataloging every document, photographing each page on Daniel's phone when it had enough charge. He built a makeshift desk out of scrap wood. The car transformed into a studio of invention. Sam helped wherever he could, taping torn pages, fetching coffee, asking questions Daniel hadn't thought to ask himself. The idea grew wild and bright in his mind. They could rebuild one of these prototypes, make it work again, not for profit, but for people like them. His grandfather's dream didn't die in 1948. It was waiting for them. When the next storm came, they didn't fear it. They worked through it. Rain drummed on the roof while Daniel traced the wiring diagrams, trying to match the old technology to modern scraps. They scavenged from junkyards, collecting panels, tubing, batteries. Sam named the pieces Hope Part 1, Roof Hero, Wall #7. Laughter filled the space that used to echo with emptiness. Neighbors from the nearby trailer park noticed the lights glowing from the train at night and wandered over. Some offered tools, others offered food. Slowly, quietly, the wanderers stopped being just theirs. It became a gathering place. By the end of the month, the car buzzed with activity. Daniel had connected solar panels to the roof and wired LED lights through the old circuits. The hum of electricity felt like applause. He used the capsule's blueprints to build a small, foldable shelter beside the train, a test model. It wasn't perfect, but it stood. Sam painted the side with big, crooked letters. "Home builds home." Daniel laughed until he cried. Every hammer swing felt like redemption. The Wanderer, once abandoned, now glowed at night like a lantern for anyone who'd lost their way. Word began to spread. One morning, a local reporter arrived, a young woman with a notepad and a curious expression. "Are you the guy who bought the train for $100? She asked. Daniel nodded cautiously. "That's me." She glanced around the car, camera clicking. "People say you're building shelters out of scrap. That true?" Daniel hesitated, then nodded again. "It started with survival. Now it's about something bigger." When her article went live, everything changed. Donations trickled in, spare tools, insulation, paint, even a generator. For the first time in his life, Daniel realized that help wasn't charity. It was community. The project grew. Volunteers arrived, students, retirees, even a few engineers. They called it the Wanderer Initiative. Daniel taught them what he'd learned from his grandfather's notes. Each person built one module, a small piece of hope, shaped from rust and willpower. Sam became the unofficial mascot, guiding visitors with his fearless curiosity. "This place used to be broken," he'd tell them proudly. "Now it fixes people." Daniel watched him one evening, standing by the door with sunset glowing behind him, and thought how strange it was that a train that couldn't move had somehow made everyone else move forward. But one night, while everyone slept, Daniel couldn't. He sat by the lantern with his grandfather's notebook open. There was one entry left, one he'd avoided reading. The ink was shaky, the handwriting weak. "To my grandson, if you ever find this, I'm sorry I couldn't finish what I started. They said it wasn't worth saving. But I know one day someone will prove them wrong. When you do, promise me this, let it belong to everyone, not just yourself." Daniel read it aloud, in a whisper, the words trembling. "I promise," he said to the quiet steel walls. Weeks turned to months. The Wanderer transformed completely. Floors polished, walls repainted, solar grid steady. The new shelters lined the field like small silver cabins, each one built from blueprints his grandfather had drawn 70 years earlier. Reporters came, Donations poured in, and still Daniel refused to call it success. "It's not mine," he said when asked. "It's his, and now it's everyone's." He hung his grandfather's plaque inside the car where sunlight hit it every morning. The engraved words, "Designed for the future," gleamed like scripture. The car, once forgotten, had become a living cathedral of second chances. Winter came. Snow fell softly over the yard, blanketing everything in silence. Daniel stood outside, watching his breath form ghosts. The shelters glowed from within, occupied now by families who'd been sleeping in cars not long ago, just like he had. Sam ran between them, laughing, his boots kicking up powder. "Careful," Daniel called. "It's slippery." The boy spun around, arms wide. "We made a village." "We did," Daniel said. His throat tightened. He thought of the first night they'd slept inside the train, how cold it had been. Now warmth lived here, not in heaters, but in hearts. That night, Daniel walked through the train alone. The floor creaked beneath his boots, but the sound no longer scared him. It sang. He paused at the conductor's booth, running a hand along the rail. The walls still held the faint scent of oil and rain, but beneath it lingered something purer life. He whispered, "We did it, Grandpa." The lantern flickered once, as if answering. In the silence that followed, Daniel felt the weight of every mile the wanderer had ever traveled, every story she'd carried, and every second chance she'd given. Some ghosts don't haunt, they guide. In spring, a letter arrived. It was from a foundation offering funding to expand the project nationally. They wanted to convert old rail cars into emergency shelters across the country. Daniel stared at the letter, disbelief turning to awe. The words blurred as tears filled his eyes. "He did it," he whispered. "He actually changed the world through us." Sam peeked over his shoulder. "Does that mean we're famous?" Daniel laughed, wiping his face. "No, kid. It means the world's about to get a little more room for people like us." "Then Grandpa's dream came true," Sam said softly. They celebrated that night under strings of salvaged lights. Volunteers, neighbors, even the yard manager gathered around a fire pit, sharing stories. Someone brought a guitar. Someone else brought pie. Daniel sat beside Sam, watching laughter ripple through the crowd like wind over wheat. The train glowed behind them, steady and proud. "You ever think," Sam said between bites, "that maybe the train picked us?" Daniel looked at him and smiled. "Yeah," he said. "I think some things find you when you're finally ready to listen." The boy nodded solemnly. "Then I'm glad we listened." "Me too," Daniel said. Later that night, when the fire burned low and the stars hung quiet overhead, Daniel returned to the car one last time. He opened his grandfather's notebook, placed it on the conductor's chair, and whispered, "It's done." He left it there not as an ending, but as an offering. The pages rustled once, though no wind stirred. Outside, the tracks shimmered faintly with frost, stretching toward a horizon that no longer frightened him. The wanderer would never move again, but her story would. And that, Daniel realized, was what motion truly meant. Not distance, but direction. At dawn, the boy and his father stood by the tracks, mugs of coffee steaming in their hands. The sun rose, slow and steady, gilding the world in promise. Somewhere far away, a train horn sounded low, mournful, beautiful. Sam smiled. "She's saying goodbye." Daniel shook his head. "No," he said quietly. "She's saying keep going." They watched until the sound faded into memory. Behind them, the field shimmered with new life, a village of hope born from rust. And as the first light kissed the name the Wanderer, Daniel whispered, "Thank you." The wind answered. The journey continued.